came in here. He's like, "Are you beating the shit?"
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Divulgence. Today I have Heidi Love on the show. Heidi, how you doing? So happy for you to be here.
I am happy I got to come. Thank you so much. I am happy to be here. We've had some issues.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. We're easy
Sorry
going.
for the late. Yeah,
we're easy going here. No, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. So thank you so much for being here. I wanted to hook up with you because of obviously your research and knowledge on Mormonism and your involvement and all that stuff. So before we start jumping into anything, let's talk a little bit about yourself, your background, your history, and your involvement with the stuff that you now research.
Sure. I am a normie. I was a normie in 2020, and before I cared about what brand my purse was, my shoes. Let's see what other brainless things. Not that that's not at all important. Like once in a while, I still like a nice purse, but like mostly I didn't care about the world at all. I just was getting out of Mormonism. I was raised in it for all my life. I am a actual genealogical Mormon, which is like from the beginning of the start of the church. I am one of the ancestors. So, and believe me, they make this huge ordeal about it, and it's on all the sides. Hi, everybody. And so, yeah, it's people that are like I am don't leave. And I left. And so it's a whole situation because I can't leave the state of Utah because my kids are here and they're grown. My grandkids are here. They're being born left and right these days. Hi, kids. We love our grandkids. Saturday is grandparent day. So that's why tomorrow I was like, oh, no, we have to do it today.
So I assume a big family.
Yes, we have 6 kids. Yes, of course. We were good Mormons. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah. 6 kids is the situation. And our kids are from 11 to the oldest is 29. And so,
okay.
Yeah. And we do have his, mine, and ours. He had 2, I had 3, and we had a big surprise at the end. Surprise! Like I never say accident because she's not, and it was just a happy thing. So, after I stopped crying because I was old, not because of the baby, just because I was like, I'm old, like the crypt keeper, right? I was almost 40. Like that's not that old, but like you get told all these things. Geriatric pregnancy, and I was a nurse, and I'm a nurse now, and I knew what the risks were and stuff, so I was scared basically. And I had just come out of having treatment. I had just barely had treatment for cancer and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it was scary. Yeah. So her name is Faith because we were scared for a minute. Yeah. So, and she made it and everything was fine. But there for a minute, it was really scary because I did have radiation and everything during that time frame. So it was a lot. And so we had her, and my next one up is 18 and graduating very shortly. It's going to be a nurse like his mom.
Congratulations. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks. I told him not to do it. I was like, oh, and he was sad kind of. I was like, but you're going to break everything. Everything is broken on me. Like all the thing, not my face, that stayed. The hands, the feet, the back, I just was like, oh no. And I love helping people. I just wished my body would have loved helping people, right? So yeah, it's just one of those things, but I still love it. I'm a psychiatric nurse now, and I work at an inpatient lockdown unit. And we oftentimes have military people that are coming out for various PTSD and different things. And it's really top like clearance. Basically, we still do paper charting, everything like that, because these are people's lives and they don't want them out. So it's very sad. And watching what the government did to people, watching what 2020 brought, watching what they tried to shove on me, it wasn't going to happen. Like, you've known me for about 10 minutes, and I don't think you could probably force me to do anything I didn't want to do, as you could probably tell in that 10 minutes of ranting about my everything that doesn't want to work because podcasting. Suddenly, yeah. Anyway, I was like, "Oh, I'll just start doing lives about podcasting, and I'll do an expose on the podcasting world if that keeps up." But hey, whatever. And I fell into podcasting. I loved it. And I did not mean to be a podcaster. I don't know anything about the computer. Um, I don't know a lot of things about a lot of things because I'm almost 50. So I had a floppy disk. I was young. I just cried. My first 7 uploads were on iMovie. This is how bad it was. Yeah, this was scary and sad, right? And so I just want to get my voice out there because I really felt prompted by God to do this. And I know people say that's crazy, but let me tell you, people, I would never have done this otherwise. And everything has changed. Now I spend a fortune on books, very less on purses and silly things. Not that that's, if that's your thing, that's okay. I'm just saying for me, I changed and tried to sound the alarm in 2020 about everything. And I refused. I almost lost my job. So,
Well, I mean, yeah, you worked in healthcare, right? So I guess
yep.
that would have been a little dangerous. Anyways, but
Yeah, they tried to make me sign for the cure, give the cure. I refused to do either. It's just I didn't like it's I'm not an anti anything. The problem is it just isn't the correct way things are handled. And after 26 years as a nurse, I just went, nope, we got to wait on this one. Nope. Rats get better treatment. Like, come on now.
right? Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, they have
Uh-huh.
better testing protocols. Yeah. So why don't you start with a little bit more with growing up as a Mormon, and then maybe segue into a little bit more about why you decided to leave that.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't ever picture myself as leaving. I was devout as anyone could be. I even pulled the cord of getting married before I made any sexual sin because I was 17 when I got married because I was going to have a sexual sin. Right. It was like one or the other. It was like something's going to happen. This is very bad. Um, and so I married a 25-year-old and that was stupid. Don't do that. There's some good advice from a lady that knows. Uh, you don't know who you are at 17. You have no idea what you're going to do or nothing. So he converted for me. He was an Irish Roman Catholic. I'm pretty sure his mother still doesn't forgive me for that. I am sorry though. And I wished yeah, there's a lot of things there, right? But it lasted a long time, even though it was a weird start. We weren't pregnant, we weren't any of that stuff. I was in love. I knew him 92 days, and I was ready for forever, time and all eternity. 92 days. So after the 92 days, yeah, I got married to him. We were good for quite a while. Then he decided maybe he would try polygamy, but he didn't let me know. So, yeah, I didn't want to play that game. Paranoid American, what's up? So I just was like, okay, I have to leave this situation and get out because he won't stop seeing this other girl. And I don't like taking back seat to like anybody ever. And so, yeah, and I left and stayed in the church. So I wasn't this bitter ex divorcee that started drinking coffee and beer and going to wild parties. But, um, you know, I had always had issues after I had gone through the temple with my husband. And we did that approximately maybe 2 years after we got married, right in there. I was very pregnant with our first child at that point. I was like 9 months pregnant, and it was traumatic. I don't know if that was just my experience, but it was really, really weird. And I wanted to run out of the room and probably would have if it wasn't for every single person in there being like my family members staring at me and telling me to suck it up, basically. My great grandma, when I was crying about being naked in the shield that they used to use in initiatory, you just have this little, it's basically like a serape poncho. You just put your head
Yeah.
in, and it's open and you're naked. And I was crying and I was fat and pregnant and humongous. And I was very upset. And my great grandma said, I don't know why you're crying. In my day, we had to get naked in a bathtub. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I couldn't even feel bad for myself anymore because then I was like, "Ah, okay." And so I just shut up and dealt with it, and I did that for a really long time because I knew if I left, I would lose my family, and I did. So, when I did leave, hi, Donald. When I left, I just for a while, they were sending missionaries to my house. They were doing the whole like, come back. My grandma sent me letters about not wearing my garments, like all this crazy stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's just not happening. Like, I believe in Jesus and I don't believe it's like that. I don't think he needs us to do weird ceremonies. And I don't think he needs us to do all this weird stuff that makes me feel like I'm going to puke every single time I do it. So I don't want to do that anymore. And she's like, well, just don't go to the temple. And I was like, yeah, but that's what they say is the most important thing since you're born. Okay. From the
Mhm.
time I was like a little kid, there's even hymns about it. Like, I can't wait to go to the temple someday and blah, 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 all this stuff. So I was like, okay, I don't know what I couldn't reconcile in my mind. Right. Like, I'm like, I can't just fake it till I make it. Like, I tried. I did try. And so I left and things got extremely ugly. My grandma sued me. She reported me to CPS falsely. Any report to CPS, just so people know, if it includes physical abuse, they will take your child for the next 90 days to examine the situation, regardless if you're guilty or innocent, so that nobody and I understand why, because if something happened in the time frame in between, then they're liable for that because it's been reported. So I lost my child, and for 90 days, I did not see her. I missed her first day of school for the first time ever in my life. My kids are my everything. And she was a senior in high school. And that made it even harder because she was on the cusp of turning 18 and didn't want to be with me because her boyfriend was on a mission and I was listening to anti Mormon propaganda. And so she didn't want to come home. I was ruining her life. And I was clearly going to hell per them. They don't believe in hell, but outer darkness. And it was really awful. And that was probably the worst times of my life while I'm pregnant with this new little baby. And I almost lost her a couple times. Like, I was having bleeding, like all kinds of really bad things were happening to me at this time. And people say, when you find God, like, be prepared for like the shit storm, literally. Because it is. And it's almost like Job, right? Like, I always have to refer back to Job and say, I didn't lose all my kids in one day, though. Job did, and he never got them back. People always say, well, Job was restored and that was wonderful. No, those kids they can't be replaced by other kids. That doesn't work. Each person is so individual and wonderful in their own little way, and children are especially that. So I always take a breath and say, well, you know, this is what it is. You've got to do what you need to do for yourself. And if they love you, they'll really love you, right? And they'll still have a relationship with you minus this cult. And that didn't happen. So, um, and it caused such a rift between me and my daughter that it did resurface again later. And we are again estranged and have been estranged for 7 years. So, it's just really hard sometimes when you go through that stuff because you're like, "Hey, God, I did what you said, like, fix it," right? Like, "I'm here, fix it." But then you read, like, The Prodigal Son, and you read all these things, and you have to recenter and say, "Okay, this is not my time frame," and be patient. And somebody did comment that. So, yeah, I agree, and it's hard. And so, through this journey, I never saw myself here. I never saw myself even going on a podcast. Like, that seems ridiculous to my mindset. If I were to tell you who I am back then, loved podcasts, critical for me, critical in who I became, critical in learning. I love them, everything about them. And I would listen. I mean, my kids know, like, to tap me a little bit because I have this long hair and kind of hides my ear, and they know that I'm probably listening to something, not just a podcast, but audiobooks, whatever, probably 12 to 15 hours a day. And so while I do housework, I'm one of those people that can just I can do multiple things because people are like, that sounds crazy. How would you do that? And I'm like, oh, that's really easy for me, multitask. You figure that out as a parent of 6 kids. So yeah, it helps me in a way. It's like a decompression while you're doing dishes. I don't know. And so I became really interested in some stuff and I wrote into one podcast and said, "You should do a show on blah blah blah." And he said, "You should come on and do a show with that." And so I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll come on." And we did one show about Utah and the schools in Utah, this one school, and it had some weird pictures and stuff. And then after that, um, we did another. He said, "Didn't you say you were from Utah and you're Mormon?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I was one." And he goes, "Okay, well, you should just come on and talk to me about that." So we did a couple more shows. And after that, he said, "You might want to just think about doing a podcast." I said, "Doing a podcast? Well, how would that even work? I don't know." And so anyway, some people are really fun. I have all my kids, so except for one who's an adult, but good try. Um, anyways, I went forward and started talking in my kitchen. I didn't even know how to run it. And from there, we ended up here. And now I expose things, which gives me a fair amount of hate. I expose things and it gives me a fair amount of people that come on and just, with no picture say crap. And it's so much fun, Like you can't how do you prove that? How do you like I have nothing to gain. I have no sponsors. So I have never had one in my life. I'm not against it. I guess I would if I found somebody that I believed in their thing, but it's just not been a thing for me. So, yeah. And I am still here in Utah because our kids have all settled and they're having babies and parents are getting older and they need help and all the things. So here we are, even though I would love to get out of here.
Can you tell us a little bit more about, I mean, it's a big question, but tell us a little bit more about what Mormonism is like. I mean, when people say they believe in God or Jesus, that can mean many different things, right? So what is that like? And again, if I'm asking any questions that seem offensive or anything, I do
No,
apologize.
I'm totally open.
And
Nope.
this is all
I'm
very
totally open.
so. My I think the extent of my experience of knowledge with like a Mormon group would be like Warren Jeffs and his fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So is that in any way similar? That's kind of just a side question, but yeah,
No,
tell us a
that's
bit more
totally fine.
about
You
Mormonism. And
You can ask me anything, and even when I bring this stuff up, I know that people are gonna say things, so don't worry about it. I'm a big girl. I'll wade through the muck to get to the real. So don't worry about offending me. It won't happen, and I'll sass back when I have a chance and not make it about that. So don't worry. I was from the sect of mainstream Mormonism, and mainstream Mormonism doesn't really get into polygamy or any of that stuff, at least on the surface anymore. Right. It was outlawed when they became a state, and they have something called the Articles of Faith where they have to obey the quote laws of the land. And so when they decided to do that and become an actual state instead of the state of Deseret, then, polygamy was kind of off the table. There were people still doing it under the table, and there were many offshoots, such as the Jeffs clan, the Kingstons. There's so many. I mean, I can't even name because the church is fractured hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. So, we have sex when, Joseph Smith died, he didn't leave a predecessor. And so the church, even at the time of his death, fractured into tons of different things. And even I dare say it was other things before the church became the church, because he had a brother-in-law that sought off to your area, which is, well, not your specific, but in Canada. and he was a seeker. He was a reverend seeker, and he went out there and he made quite the posterity out there in Canada. And they are very spiritualistic people. I've been doing a lot of deep diving on that, and it seems to follow spiritualism. So even then, it breaks off. So we have all these different people that are shooting off in all the different directions. And the Strangites, they go to Wisconsin. They make their own sect. Um, the Macs, they go on to settle. So Lucy Mack Smith was Joseph's mom. She went, and had these brothers. They went on to settle Maine settlements in actual America that nobody knows about, like Pontiac, Michigan is a settler. Mactown, Illinois that is named after Lucy Mack Smith's brothers, Stephen Mack, and his son, Stephen Mack Jr., who married into a Native American community and actually acquired a bunch of land through a treaty for his children. And then his children died. So he ended up with the land as a white man. So there were bank scandals straight out the gate with Stephen Mack, who went on and was involved in some, bank scandals. And, it's just very interesting. So we have to look at all the offshoots. There are people that definitely kept to the true word, which is more like a Warren Jeffs clan or the Kingstons. And, they still all exist today. My sister actually married Warren Jeffs' nephew. So there's that.
Who married Warren Jeffs' nephew?
Oh, my sister.
Your
my
sister. Which which one is that? Sorry, because like that
Warren Jeffs?
No. Warren Jeffs' nephew.
The Steeds. Yeah, he's been on my show. He's a Steed. He's written a book. People can go look at that book. It's I can't remember. Isaac Steed. If you look on Amazon, I'm going to look it up because I always like to plug his book for him because it was really hard for him to leave. That was a really hard situation. He was related on both sides. So, yeah. It's an interesting
deception, deliverance.
Yep, I think
Isaac's
so.
Story?
Yep.
Okay,
Isaac's Story. Yes, Isaac's Story is correct. That's it.
Okay, so he is your sister's husband.
Ex-husband. Ex-husband.
I'm sorry, ex-husband.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is him. And he's a great guy, and he's tried to put his story out there. He speaks out. That is unheard of in the Jeffs clan. Most of the time they don't speak out. There's a few others. I've interviewed one of his ex-wives, and she speaks out, but very rarely, do you have somebody that has a firsthand account, especially being related. And so, same thing with me. I'm mainstream. I could make this way weirder and be like, oh, I was in this weird polygamous thing and blah, 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 all this weird stuff. But I don't, because that's not my story. I just try to give it the facts, and I try to say, okay, this is what I went through. You don't have to make it more salacious, honestly, because it gets salacious on its own. I'm sorry, Mormon Church. I'm sorry your history is weird. Like, I don't know what to tell you about that. You have tried to hide it, like everybody that ever knows anything about Joseph Smith knows he came from where. Do you know the base? I can tell you if you don't know. It's okay.
I might be able to guess it, but
okay. So New York, right? Palmyra.
Oh,
they hear about this burned over district, and that's where he's from. But that's not where he's from. And they hear, oh, he's a dumb farm boy that doesn't know anything. Okay. Well, how come his dad's family, all of them? So we've already talked about the mom's side with the Macs. Let's talk about the Smiths. The Smiths are from somewhere else. They're from, I don't know, this little place called Massachusetts, and it's called Topsfield, Massachusetts, but it's right near Salem. And yes, they were involved in the Inquisition. And so when you're talking about witches and witchcraft and people pointing their finger, his great grandfather, see, this is born in 1666, Smith, last name Samuel Sr., not Jr. There'll be a Captain Samuel Smith, and then there'll be a Father Samuel Smith, born 1666. He is from Topsfield, Massachusetts. Yes, they were witches. I believe so, because many people that blamed witches were actually the ones doing the things. And I think they were alchemists. And, when you point your finger and then say methinks you protest too much, like, maybe we should look at that. So I did, and genealogically, this is how I've gone down like the whole thing because my grandma was involved in genealogy and it was huge to her, to the church on a good upstanding level. She was a genealogical missionary. I traveled all over America with her, taking pictures of tombstones and going through microfilm and all this stuff when I was younger. And I never understood it. I just thought it was silliness. I thought it was stupid. I remember thinking, who cares? She's like, oh, we're related to these royal people. And when the Holy Grail came out, that movie, I remember she was losing her mind. She was so happy and excited. And I thought, this is so stupid. Like, I don't know. I don't care. I was young, and I didn't realize the importance of what she was trying to tell me until far later. And now I'm like, whoa. Now I go down everybody's family trail because people like, oh, I don't know. Brigham Young came here. He's running from the government, right? He's a weirdo polygamist that wants to have polygamy and have his own state and be outside of America. Leave me alone, right? That's like the narrative why he came to Utah. So why did he immediately get in touch with somebody to help them finish the railroad through the Harrimans? I don't know. Why are they sending missionaries everywhere, including Russia? Why are they hobnobbing and getting money from the royal family? That's a good one. Um, why does this all go through? Like I just don't understand if it's such an upstanding thing that we have all these weird connections and we know the tie-in with the three-letter agencies. So, yeah, it's kind of odd.
Hmm. Wow. So much
Yeah.
there, obviously, right? There's so much going on there. So, so the Jeffs,
Yes.
you're saying that they follow you. You said they followed
Oh, they
the
follow
old
true Mormonism,
the true
real
Mormon. Okay,
Mormonism.
so
Mhm. I know. I know
okay,
that's like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
whoa.
yeah. So my
Yeah.
next question, if it is a question, is well, what went wrong, or did nothing go
Yeah.
wrong, and
No, a lot went
just
wrong.
it was just wrong? Okay, so what went
So
wrong
I'll tell
with
you why.
that?
I'll tell you why this happened. So the Mormons were going broke. Okay. And Brigham Young, he wasn't Joseph Smith. I think Joseph Smith would have and did die on his hill. Okay. He died out a window. That's beside the point. But he believed in what he was doing. What he was doing was witchcraft. What he was doing is, if you read John Dee at all, he was
Yep.
doing magic, real magic. He was summoning spirits, and he was using the Ars Goetia. He had a Jupiter talisman in his pocket when he died. It gets deep, and people are like, "Oh, Solomonic magic. Oh, I've never heard that before." I'm like, "Well, that's simple. All I had to do was look at the Jupiter talisman, and all I did was put it in a reverse lookup on the picture on
Yeah.
Google, and it told me what the book was. So I was like, oh, this is this kind of magic. I didn't know that. I called it Enochian for a while, but I knew that it dealt with, the keys of Solomon. So, I mean, I didn't know the depth of what I was getting into at that time at all, but I now know like that he was a very powerful magician. Crowley tips his hat to him in the book Moonchild. It's a reference about Joseph Smith in the footnotes from Crowley himself. So why would a magician tip his hat when he hated religion to a religious prophet? Because he wasn't. He was a prophet, but he wasn't a religious prophet. He was talking to angels, much like John Dee, Crowley, and many other people that talked to angels, wrote a book, and it became a religion. How many do we know? Scientology, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, Islam, like they're all together. Okay. And every single one of these have been procured either on accident or on purpose, talking to an angel, write the book, blah, blah, blah. That's how it goes. And funny enough, even John Dee says later, the spirits lie. But the better one is Crowley. After he wrote the book of the law, he said, the spirit lied to me. And he specifically said AWAS. So if you search into that, there's something there. But of course, there's a lot that goes into speaking to spirits and bringing them here and the things they want from you. And that gets weird. and we'll just put it there.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith hung on to that, and I think they killed him for it. I really do. He was saying the quiet part out loud, and it didn't work. Because Freemasonry ties in, and
Okay.
that just was a problem. Yeah, and actually, the lodge he joined was the Onondaga Lodge, was the lodge he became member of. So, he became a master mason in a day within a 24-hour period, and that tells you
Doesn't happen.
something
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. Yeah. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and so I think they showed, their cards there, but like I said, I think Brigham was on a different path. Brigham wanted polygamy. Brigham wanted to keep doing certain things that he was doing, and he did. And he also got in really good with all these people, especially the railroad, and he helped finish the railroad on the backs of the saints and then promised them payment, and they never paid them. Union Pacific was not required to pay the saints later, and a lot of them died, and a lot of them lost their children and everything over this because they couldn't feed them. And so shame on him. Yeah, it's very sad. And after that, he was in tight with all of these people, and he's also in tight with this guy named William Godby. But then they have some falling out, and William Godby is said to be a table tapper, a godless man, communes with spirits, all these weird things. And next thing you know, he's not a Mormon anymore, but he starts his own Mormon sect called the Godbyites, which nobody's ever heard of. And so the Godbyites are an interesting situation. They're doing the communing, they're doing the things that these other people have kind of shunned away since Joseph, has left the earth, literally. And Brigham is going more mainstream. This is where this is happening. And Godby really wants the Federal Reserve to come to Utah. And, that's a problem because they can't be having these weird polygamous people having these kind of things and be a state. So Heber J. Grant is his kind of godfather. We don't have godfathers in Mormonism, but that's what it relates to because his father was gone and his mom worked in the household. So he was raised up by this Godby, and he was getting instilled with all of these kinds of values and beliefs, and eventually he becomes actually the prophet, seer, revelator of the church, and he brings in the Federal Reserve. Okay. And when this happens, everything changes. When the church becomes aligned with the state, that is never what was intended. And so we have to understand that, this changed the dynamic for the quote unquote mainstream, but it also changed the dynamic for the people that said this is false prophet stuff. Like if he doesn't want to do polygamy, we're out of here and we'll choose our own prophet. So a lot of them did that. So the ones that stayed true to the original word, and you can get these books out there, the polygamists teach from them. And there's multi-volume sets of these really old books, which is where I get most of my information from. And you go through these books and find out what really happened. There's also other books called Mormons and Gentiles. That's what they called us, like back in the people that weren't part of the church, which is very interesting when you get into like Goyim and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gets weird. And so you see this alignment from Godby. He bought a newspaper, don't they all?
I'm
And
just gonna say that.
and he became very important in mining. And today there is still Godby drilling and mining corporations, and he sold a lot of it to the Queen. And so it's a very interesting. I don't think I've ever told anybody that yet because I'm just doing that now. So
Wow. So just a couple recaps, just so I'm following properly. The Brigham we're talking about, that's Brigham Young. Okay. And the Godby, that's William S. Godby.
William S. Godby is, they were friends, then they had a falling out. Then he's a crazy godless spiritualist that's table tapping spirits. Actually, they're the ones that told him how to go start his mine, and they were right, and he's really rich. So there's that. I can't explain that, but I can tell you that's how he got it. And then they weren't wanting, I think it was a rift mostly between tithing, right? You're supposed to give 10% of your earnings. And I think it was like, no, bro, I'm keeping my money. And so I think they were going back and forth on that. I can't prove that part, but like, yeah.
It's
Um,
yeah, it's a thing that would probably come up, I'm sure.
right. And so Godby is Grant's godfather, who goes on to be the prophet, and he brings in the Federal Reserve and actually says he will do anything, whatever they name for it to go and be here in Utah. So all this stuff is happening and he's acquiring like newspapers and mining and all this weird stuff in the 1800s. But lots of weird stuff happened before that. You know, you have to understand that Joseph Smith's family was not nobodies. Joseph Smith's family had 7. There were only 100 people on the Mayflower when it first came over. 7 of them are related to Joseph Smith, including the one that fell overboard. So he actually qualifies for the first families, which is super important if you're into secret societies and the Mayflower Society. There's a bunch of different societies that get involved with this. And I just did an episode with David Livingston on this. And it's very interesting when you see this Rosicrucian dynamics, this Jacobism, all of this stuff. And so you know that this came over with these people. Yes, some came over for religious freedom, but what does that mean? Does that mean witchcraft? I mean, we don't know. We weren't there, you know? And so he definitely qualified for these different lines, even though he's a nobody. And he's very important, you know, his ancestors, so the Smith from 1666 has another Samuel Smith, and he's considered a captain, but he's not a real captain, but they call him that because it wasn't like he wasn't aligned with one particular, I don't know, because everything was just army back then or whatever. It wasn't structured.
Right.
But yeah, he goes on and he is one of the main conspirators, actually the person that helped give the idea for the Boston Tea Party. And so these are not no ones. I'm sorry. The person teaching Joseph Smith Hebrew at that time, even though he was dumb as a box of rocks and couldn't speak English properly and couldn't write a letter, he decides to learn one of the hardest languages in the world. Like, what? What are you talking about? Why would he study Hebrew if he was like completely inept? You know, that doesn't make any sense, right? He's studying it from somebody named Isaac Seixas, Seixas. Well, his father is Gershom Seixas, who was at the inauguration of George Washington and extremely important as one of the first Jewish community here in America. He was only part Sephardic Jew. His wife was not Sephardic at all. And they were very important people. Okay. And still are to this day. Like if you look back in history and that goes into like a whole bunch of stuff. But that doesn't align with what's happening with these dumb farmers. Why are the dumb farmers hobnobbing with George Washington people? That's weird. Why would you do that? Well, obviously not. But we know that the Seixas family was ran out of Portugal for witchcraft. So, I mean, I hate to break it to people, but like we've got 2 sides of the coin. One is aligned with the state, one is aligned with magic. We've got this very interesting startup. We've got these people that are, you know, definitely influential all across America. We're not just talking about Utah. People think Mormons are only in Utah. No, they need to look at the Strangites in Wisconsin. They need to look at Arizona. They need to look at Silicon Valley. I know that. They need to look further and see that most of the West was settled by Mormons, including Las Vegas, by the way. And you know, Las Vegas was developed mostly by the mob later, right? Mormons couldn't
Right.
hack the whole mess. But guess what happens? Why did the mob get ran out of Vegas? Let's see if you know this, because no one ever does.
Why the mob got ran out? No, shoot, go for it.
Everybody hears the mob started Vegas, but nobody ever hears why they left. If they were killing it and making tons of money, then why did they leave? I can tell you why. Because the banksters, as I like to say, I didn't coin that term, but the banksters, not the gangsters, started actually taking over everything through banking, through E. Perry Thomas. And E. Perry Thomas was a Mormon. E. Perry Thomas was extremely influential and part of 3-letter agencies. So he was a paratrooper in the war. And he was Secret Service. And who did he work with? Well, this guy named Mac. Don't forget Joseph Smith's mom's name. Yeah, E. Perry Thomas, the quiet kingmaker. He goes on to be the godfather. We've seen this a lot, even though we don't have godfathers. How funny is that? He goes on to be the godfather to who? Steve Wynn. Steve Wynn of Las Vegas right
Oh,
now.
come on.
I'm not. Look at it. Put in Steve Wynn and E. Perry Thomas. You'll see it's not hard to find. Also, at Brigham's era, we don't have a godson, but we do have a best buddy. And this guy is Peter Till's grandpa, like uncle, great uncle. And his name, is all over. He's the first principal of BYU. So I'm like, wait, why is this all like what? Carl G. Mazer, Maser. Mazer. That is Peter Till's great uncle. Why is he coming here from Germany to be the principal of BYU? Well, I don't know, but he studied underneath literally the guy that studied underneath Karl Marx. People should probably look at Carl Mazer. I have his biography published in 1927 that I found at a rare bookstore. So this isn't coming from the internet. It is true. And so, yeah, you can find it on the internet. It comes up. It's not a problem. But you can also prove it with an actual book produced by who? BYU. So, I mean, it's kind of like, okay, what's happening here? And people are saying, well, it's the Jesuits, it's the Jews, it's the Mormons. Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah. Yep. What what was Francis Bacon talking about with this whole Brave New World and the Stuart line and all of these things, right? This is why there is America. And who was involved in that? John D. Now, I come from the Stewart line. John D is one of my great uncles. Okay. This is no joking around. He's literally in my genealogy tree, per even the Mormons verified, like on their genealogy website, which is hysterical. So, why did some guy that was in line for the throne, he was an illegitimate son, he went to South Africa. Why did he run away and leave? Well, we know the answer because of the whole Stewart, problem, and then that's why the Jacobins happen and all this whole thing. But like they end up in Utah of all places. His son ends up here, which is just bananas to me. And he just dies a poor farmer in Kaysville, and people can look it up. Like it's very strange. They're hiding. They're hiding. And they hid this bloodline. And yes, it goes into Jesuits. It goes into, Jewish ancestry. It goes, and I'm not picking on the Jews. I'm just saying like history says, okay. It also goes into the Jesuits. We see this happen through what? Freemasonry. We see David M. Kennedy actually being best friends, like tight with who? Sindona. You know who Sindona is? God's banker. You know him?
Sindona.
Look that one up. That one's fun. So God's banker. Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting. And we get it. Who also was Onassis's banker, the Onassis. What was Onassis known for? All of this stuff, they all have to have a common component. And when you look at it, they don't, because one's Greek and one's Italian and one's white and delightsome, and they don't like to intermix breeding and all this stuff. But that's because people don't understand the true meaning of the Aryan race movement. It doesn't mean just white and delightsome. It means a lot of things. And Theosophy explains this, but people just say she was crazy too, because that's what women get labeled when they come out and speak the truth. Right. Blavatsky blew that all out of the water. She just did. See?
Is this the race?
God's banker.
Okay. God's banker. Okay.
If you put in Michelle Sindona and David M. Kennedy, you'll see they're best buddies. It's very interesting. And I'm just saying that it's all connected. People have a hard time because they want to just single one out and say, it's this. Well, okay. But, we haven't even got into the fact that Daniel Deacon Gates, okay, Daniel Deacon Gates is Lucy Mack Smith's grandpa on her maternal side. Well, that's weird. And so if you put in, is Bill Gates related to blah, 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 and it'll say, no way. And but if you go in and put, is Bill Gates related to Deacon Daniel Smith, because he's very important in history, it will say, oh, yes. Oh, he was such a great guy. And it comes from this great line. Well, that's her grandpa on the maternal side. So what the hell is going on there? And then you look at the guy. Yeah. You look at the guy that helped start the whole, well, the Vegas thing. The way they got the money to fund that is they tapped the Teamsters pension fund. I forgot to mention that. So literally mob backed. Like they had to give the okay thumbs up on that. I'm sure Hoffa knew all about it.
Yeah.
But whatever, they tapped that fund, and they've got all these, politicians and stuff in their pockets via Howard Hughes, who only hires Mormons. And that's a whole thing with the Mormon mafia. I know how crazy it sounds. Believe me, when I went down the rabbit hole of this, my husband one day, I was like, I think it was after the whole JFK thing, because I never cared about JFK. I mean, I was like, it's a setup. Yeah, I get it. Like, but I didn't know, I didn't know how bad it was. And when I found out a bunch of stuff circulating it, like, who Kerry Thornley is and how important he is to like the human, like whatever movement. And he does all this weird, like Peter Thiel type stuff, but he's old. He's involved with JFK. Okay.
Oh, this guy. Yeah.
He's a Mormon. He's a freaking Mormon. He was raised Mormon. Put in his Kerry Thornley raised a Mormon. It'll come up. I don't make up things. Yeah. Because
it Lord Omar Khayyam Ravenhurst. Is that the same guy?
Kerry Thornley is like a JFK conspiracy guy. And so if you put him in, put in Kerry Thornley.
That's what
JFK.
Comes up when look, this is what's coming up when
let's see. Yeah. Yep. That's him. Okay. Yep.
Because we got Lord Omar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because he created this whole weird movement. And I haven't.
Of course.
Yeah. Of course he did. But he was raised a Mormon. If you look him up, he was raised a Mormon. So what? Like, I did not mean to even find that. I wasn't even, who I was looking for? That other guy, the Carl G. Mazer guy. And so I'm like, why is this happening? Like, why are they everywhere? Why are Mormons everywhere? This is so weird. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't get it. I don't understand. Even the Green River Killer, his brother, a Mormon. He was raised a lot in Utah. Like all these weird things, like the bishop one. The bishop, is that Green River? Yeah, that's right. So Ted Bundy, he's a Mormon. Israel Keys, he's a Mormon. I'm just saying, we got some problems. Okay, when we start having a God complex, it like is very poisonous for the world. Because you can do things to other little peons that aren't gods, and you don't care about them, just like the whole Goyim comment, just like porch masons, just like all this stuff. When you can make yourself above humanity and you start saying that you are better than everybody and nobody else matters, that is very important. And yes, it does tie to Mossad. Somebody said something about Mossad. And so it's going to tie to Mossad through Onassis. Everything is tied through everything, and especially through Daddy Kennedy, who's what? He's Irish, right? Yep. Well, people might want to look into what Joseph Smith was, because he was too. And so, like this is all very intricate. And if I did a board, those crazy boards, which I feel like I sometimes need, it would never stop. It would crisscross over into everything. And I don't know why. Like Elon Musk, his number one money guy, Jared Birchall, he's a Mormon. Why? What the hell is going on? They're the nicest people ever, and nobody ever criticizes them or comes out and speaks against them. And if they do, what do you hear about? Polygamy. So what? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there are also like a lot of these offshoots that you talk about, right? Like the Jeffs, like that's like,
it's wild.
That one is polygamy. Wild. Like when they raided, what are they calling it, Zion or whatever, when they raided that temple, and the photos you see of like the ceremonial bed, and the
There's
tapes
video.
the
Yeah.
tapes you hear, it is absolutely makes your goddamn skin crawl. It's so
Oh, and
god
she's like
fucking
12.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't like if that guy ever walked my path, man. Like holy shit! Like
Oh,
I'm
oh
surprised
yeah.
that guy is still alive. You see about
I'm sure
people
they have
getting
died.
killed,
Yeah.
people getting killed in prison for being pedophiles. If I was in prison, I would definitely want to kill that fucking guy. Like
100. I'm sure he's like at the
he
utmost
just looks,
isolation.
yeah, because he just looks like a goddamn fucking maggot that you'd want to wring his goddamn neck too, because he just doesn't give a flying fuck. He thinks
No.
he's untouchable. Like, oh,
Well,
that
because
guy's
he's God.
so
He's
fucking
a God.
disgusting. Yeah,
He's
so
a God.
fucking disgusting. Yeah.
But you have to understand too, those kids are probably the kids he married are probably his relation because they all marry and intermarry back then to the point where they get the weirdest birth defects you've ever seen. And why? Kingston. I mentioned the Kingstons. Okay. They're very rich. They're even more powerful than the Jeffs, and you never hear about them. Well, why? Because they donate a bunch of money to the Romneys and other people. But the Kingstons, listen to the name Kingston, right? They keep their bloodline pure. They don't interbreed with any other races and they breed with each other. And in fact, they had so many problems and issues with interbreeding that they hired once they got a lot of money because they own like Mavericks. They're like a big, uh, if anybody's from the West, you'll know it's like Casey's in the East or like gas stations and stuff. They own a lot of that. They own a whole bunch of stuff and they've been involved in a lot of really bad scams, like including energy tax credits that were fake. There's a lot of stuff with them. I haven't done a whole thing on them yet, but like it's really important too, just like the Jeffs and just like the branches of the Romneys. That's also very woo in Mexico, that and the Church of the Lamb of God and all these crazy offshoots with the LeBarons. And we could just talk. That's why I say I don't have to make up anything. It's crazy on its own. It's a whole bucket of crazy. And so when we talk about all of this stuff, we have to know that they had babies with so many women. Joseph Smith, they say he didn't. Genealogically, they say he didn't. But who owns those sinners? They do. Brigham Young had 55 wives and 50 something known children. He wasn't a closer, I guess. That's like one and something per wife. But anyway, whatever. Most polygamists I know have 13 and 14 kids a person. So
Okay.
they have, yeah, they have a lot of kids usually. So it's kind of weird that they only cite so many. Don't forget about those Macs that took off other ways and other people that took off other ways and up to Canada. You guys have a huge Kingston population, just so you know. Huge out there. They own compounds out by you, like not in your particular area.
We even have Kingston, Ontario. We have a goddamn city named Kingston too.
That's right. And it's probably them. So, like, when you look at these things and you see, well, this lady has a last name that seems Mormon. And then I look at the genealogy and it is Mormon. And who's this lady? Oh, I don't know. Just the mother of Stanford. She gave all the money for Stanford and they're super uber rich and they were involved in the railroads and all these things. Like, why is that? And why is it that the Mormons are in bed with the Gates? Well, don't forget about that family line I told you about, because I can tell you one thing. The Mac guy that I told you about from Las Vegas, I posted it on my Twitter. People can go look at these pictures. He is almost a scary carbon copy of Bill Gates. They look identical, even though they're not supposed to be related. And when I say identical, you can pull it up if you can't. It's creepy.
Actually, I think I looked at that earlier today. I'll try and find it right now. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
This guy is supposedly from Poland and not related at all. That's like the end of the story. We don't know. They're immigrants. That they love that story. But they went and bred all across America, and who knows where this seed has spread? Like literally. And when David M. Kennedy became really close with Michelle Sindona, there were a lot of loans back and forth from the LDS Church to the Catholics. And don't think for 1 minute they're not in all this together. Like right now, the Mormon temple is being redone in Salt Lake City, and the grounds are being reshaped to identically look exactly like the Vatican's from above. like a gate, like
Oh,
the key. There we go. They're not related. I don't know. If they're not related, I mean, come on. Mm, I see it.
they both
Um,
look like fucking schmucks too. So you like, oh, they gotta be
100%. Look at their eyes. Look at the nose. Look
that
at,
nose. Yeah, I was gonna say the nose. He's got that fucking
it's very strange. I'm just saying these people can completely reinvent themselves and come from somewhere else because they went and had babies everywhere. You have to know that these people were scouting across America, making cities as they went, and most of the West Coast was settled by the Mormons. Like really, Promontory Point, where the two railroads came together, that's here in Utah. People forget about Utah because they'll bake you some cookies and send you on your way and make you some green jello. Like what? That's insane. I mean, I'm not the only one exposing this. Tree of Liberty Society has come on with me quite a bit. He's the one that told me about Godby. Then I got the book Mormons and Gentiles, and I found all these different quotes about them making a secret society called the Sevens. If you know anything about secret societies and magic, you just stepped back and went, what? The sevens? Like sevens and nines? You probably better watch out. Like there's all kinds of societies off of that. And also weird magical weird things. But you have to step back and say what has been co-opted in this world. And it's not even just America. It's not. So we have to be very concerned when we see this stuff. We have to be on alert. There's nothing we can do. People always say, I mean, one world order is coming. I'm like, y'all missed the boat. Like it's been here forever. And literally the boat was the Mayflower. So, Rosicrucians come into this, all kinds of things come into this. And if people don't think they're one big club, they're sadly mistaken. So, yeah. That if I rant like that rant, what I've been ranting for like almost an hour. I only gave you this much
yeah.
and you're already shaking your head like going, "Whoa." And I don't know enough about Canadians. Like I'm going that way. Like you said, there's a town, Kingston, there's this, there's that. They're in on it too and they fly under the radar because they look normal. They used to dress like Warren Jeffs in them, but it caused too much like attention. And then they switched kind of to an Amish look and they wore blue overalls. This was their uniform, like the
Okay.
Dickies.
Yeah.
And they looked Amish, with the hats and stuff and then the little beard. But then they changed that too. And now they look normal. And the only thing is, like, this shirt would be okay as long as I had my arm down like that. So it covered my hand to there. The women can't show their wrists and stuff, but like they can wear jeans, they can wear normal clothes. They blend into society now. And you would never know. So to me, they're scarier.
What's wrong with the wrist?
Just no wrists, no ankles, no modesty. They wear a undergarment that almost exactly replicates the Jewish undergarment that's really long to the wrist to the yeah. So I know that at least what I knew of the Kingstons, they hadn't changed that. So the Mormons have changed that. The mainstream Mormons wear like a modified garment where it's more like a boxer short, almost like a Viking short, Viking shorts.
Yeah.
Um, that, yeah, and then, like, a tank top now, which I never thought I'd see, but, they can show their shoulder. It's really a whole it's really woo, it's a it's scandalous back in the Mormon day. So, it cuts off right here like a muscle shirt, and the women can now have bare shoulders, which is whoa. Yeah,
Wow.
and just below the knee on the shorts. They have Masonic emblems on the boobs. So that's fun. You
Oh.
have a compass and a square etched in, or I think it's screen printed now because it used to leave a little. You could kind of see it through clothing, so they're getting really good at like hiding it. So it's like screen
Wow.
printed. Yeah. And so originally, how they got the marks was when you went through the temple, they would cut your garments and cut you. And so a lot of them would have a cut on their knee. And then you would go home and sew that area. And so that would make the mark and
Oh.
cut here. So you have the compass and the square on the chest. And then on the belly button, a sideways ruler. And then on the right knee, also a sideways ruler. And I go over this with photos on episode 172 on Spotify. So people can go check that out. I go over every single, and I can even bring it back as a slideshow. But yeah, they do all the same things. And, they mimic a lot of things from the Jewish religion. So when you look at like the old Jewish outfits of the priests, and they would have the little baker's hat. It looks like a Pillsbury baker.
Yeah,
And yeah, we have that too. And we have the same robe and we have the same sash and we have the same everything, but we wear a green apron, but that's okay.
that
Yeah,
makes sense.
Canaanite. They are right. I'm
Green.
only going back
Okay.
so far, but this person is correct. It is absolutely Canaanite religion. And I usually don't go, depending on the audience. Some people don't know, enough. So anyway, yes, Canaanite religion. It is not a Christian religion, which is my main problem and why I speak out, because I don't care what you are. If you want to go Wicca it up and naked in the woods, I'm not going to bother you. Okay. Like that's you. You go do whatever you want. If you want to go worship Canaan, you go worship Canaan. But stop telling little old grandmas like my grandma that this is about Jesus, because that really pisses me off. And that's what I thought too. I didn't know what a Freemason was, and I wore the emblems on my chest for over 20 years. That's unfair. That's really unfair.
So were you and are these people wearing the Freemason symbols because they're acting, maybe they're are they acting as Freemasons, or are they acting under the guide or acting towards the same goals of the Freemasons, or what is that? Why is it? I mean, all these symbolisms and stuff, everything that we talk about on the show, it all, like you said, if we had a crazy board, it would just
crazy.
It would
Yep.
just keep fucking interlocking, right?
Yep.
So what's with that specific instance? What's with that interlocking? What can you tell me?
The Freemason part is Joseph was a master mason of the York Rite. People always say, "Oh, it's a Scottish Rite Masonry." No, it isn't. It's way older than that. People should look into Martinism. And the French orders are always like not always. They're very interesting, and many of them are actual practicing Mason. And so when I say that, I mean they call down spirits twice a year on the spring and fall equinox to speak to them. When did Joseph Smith speak to Moroni, the angel, on the fall equinox? He was doing a quarter moon ceremony. And so people don't understand that Freemasonry is inherently tied into witchcraft, 110%, which is tied into Rosicrucianism, which is tied into why we're even here, right? In America, no, I mean, I say we, but Americans, right? Like most of us, unless your family didn't get involved in all that. So here's the thing. When you look at all of that, and you look at everything, no wonder it aligns. And then what they started doing was taking people, not just taking their land. Like they took the Micmac tribe because they married into the Micmac tribe through Stephen Mac and Junior, the second Mac, and he married a very famous Indian princess. And I have Micmac in my blood. That's very strange. I'm in Utah, right? Like what the heck is happening there? They wanted them to acquire magical people. And so they would push them to go marry certain people. And what they said was make them more white and delightsome by buying them or marrying them and bringing them into your family. And yes, they did buy them. And so when we talk about this, you have to understand that they were doing things very systematically from an early start, right? And Masonry knew all about the Great White Brotherhood and the story of Shem and Ham and Noah's sons and all the tribes and the colors. And they didn't mix with Black people at all until like 1978. So, they did the same stuff. They were John Birchers. They were involved in all of this stuff. Like, this is very, very strange, and I just am like, well, okay, step back and look at it. Who took over America? Why no one was looking? I mean, it's a little bit scary. And I'm not saying they're the only ones, it's interesting. And so we have to look at the old world, and that's why we are a history of amnesia. And I go through this really good with David Livingston because he's one of the best I've ever seen connect all these dots, like what you're saying with the Freemasons and the secret societies, because there's more than one.
Yeah.
Skull and Bones. We have a Skull and Bones here in Utah. I've just did an episode on this. It isn't a copycat. They didn't think it was cool and like said, oh, let's do that same exact thing. They actually were sanctioned because the guy Russell Huntington, I can't remember his first name right now, but the guy that started Skull and Bones, that is Joseph Smith's fifth cousin. And so we have to understand that this is bigger than anybody gets. And they sent the people from Skull and Bones that had actually been in Skull and Bones to go set up the chapter here. It is a chapter of Skull and Bones.
So it's a chapter. Okay.
Are there any other chapters in all of America or anywhere else? There's not.
Not that I know
Only
of.
those two.
Okay.
And so that's scary a little bit when we and then they have something called Owl and Key instead of Scroll and Key. Okay. Scroll and Key's at regular Yale. Owl and Key is here in Utah, but there was something in Chicago called Snake and Key for a while, or Snake and Allen Snake. That's what it was. When the current prophet was out there, it was a secret society at the University of Chicago, which is his alma mater. Huh. Weird. Huntington, William Huntington Russell. Huntington is an extremely important Mormon name. I am from the Huntington line. That is my posterity, not the Smiths, not the men. I'm from the women, and Huntington was one. So, we look at this stuff. She became the very first president of the Relief Society. She was no schmo. She was very important. In fact, she had more priesthood blessings because they used to let women give them. Now they do not. That came true than anybody else. So very concerning divination, I'd say. There's all kinds of stories about Joseph Smith's, animal sacrifices, and his first baby dies weirdly after this whole, talking to the spirit. Oh yeah, it gets weird. And so did his brother. And who was his brother? He was the firstborn too. What did they go on to name one of the churches? The Church of the Firstborn. Don't worry about it. With a lamb, like slaughter. Let's be real and start looking at this. You guys should all be looking at the Romneys. We should be looking at the prominent families that all interlink, and at least be aware of where your energy is going, because ultimately we can't fix this. This is gone. This is too far. It's all intricate with the 3-letter agencies. Chicago is huge. The Macs are huge. I dare say, and I don't know this for sure, but Old World Micmacs in here. And I'm just going to throw this out there. The other day I was sitting thinking about it, and I was reading this really old book. A Mick is an Irishman, and a Mac was his last name. I mean, did that have anything to do with why they wanted to change their names? They like to be called Mi'kmaq now. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I mean, it's got to mean something, right? When they're making these calculated moves to change their appearance or change the name or sound or perception of something, right? It's they're laying the slate and allowing time pass to have it become the normal for a reason.
Yes, and they have to have the porch masons, which we don't know we're Masons. Okay.
Sorry, what? Okay. Sorry, what do
we have to have porch mason?
What do porch mason? What does porch mason mean again? It sounds like slur. It sounds like a slur.
It's kind of bad. But porch masons and porch Mormons is what I call them. They're the people that just believe the narrative, and they're just there to do the things, and they don't know why. Because you asked me why are they doing this? Do they know about Freemasonry? Do they know about this? No, they kind of test you. And then if you get to this point where you will do anything, I think you make it a level above. And here's the great thing. If you're 18 years old and you're a male, you're called to serve a mission. Now, how easy is it for them to just scoop you up and send you on a mission, on a mission like to your mystery school for the next 2 years, while everybody else is just serving a regular mission, going out, knocking on doors, talking to people? They're probably training people, and they've been caught a lot with the missionary training program. and interference with 3-letter agencies so badly that the prophet of the church right now got fired from BYU. Okay. People can look this up. It's real.
Sorry,
So
what's BYU? What's BYU again?
Brigham Young University.
Okay.
And he got fired from there. And we just did an expose on this, okay, on the prophet of the church. So I'm like, wait, if that's happening here, and we know about all of this stuff and ties to the mob and ties to the Chick Shinny Knights, that one got me. And all this Irish connection. And then we get into like the connections of the Quakers, which gets really weird. Like, yeah, I'm telling you, like the whole thing. When I told you my husband one day was like, I must have been pale or something, because he's like, "Are you good?" And I'm like, "Nope." And he's like, "Well, what happened?" And I was like, "I'm just reading this book." And he's like, "Okay." And he's looking at me and he's like, "Well, what did it say?" And I'm like, "It's everyone." And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, it's everything. It's everyone. It's unfixable. It doesn't matter what we do anymore. We have to fix our intention, because magic is one thing. People can say magic doesn't exist. That's fine. Then why has it stood the test of time? Why? Because people that do things that don't work, they stop. They don't do it
Right.
anymore.
Yeah. Even if it's
Why do yeah.
even if the magic doesn't work, if it's the magic that's like bonding these people together and mentally allowing them to like almost like a
It's a
drink,
cult.
like a drink for courage, right? The magic, like in this cult, kind of gives them this power or mental power to go out and do this stuff, right? Then in that case, magic is real, I would say.
Yes. I think magic is real, actually. And a lot of people say Joseph Smith copied the Book of Mormon from Solomon Spalding. Okay. There's this theory out there, the Solomon Spalding theory. And people will say
Yes.
this.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
believe in it. Okay. I believe this, and I know this to be true. Joseph Smith's family, even though they say it's not his family, Professor Johnny Smith was one of the first ever professors at Dartmouth College. Okay. Dartmouth Indian College is what they called it, funny enough. And not because Native Americans went there, but because they were teaching the people how to go out and serve missions to the Native Americans. But they were teaching them a lot of other things too. And 3 times a day, they would go for these theology lessons and they were learning things. And he was very into Middle Eastern stuff. He was a rare books dealer in town. He owned a Scotta Chronicon. That's really interesting. And he was a very interesting character. Dr. Nathan Smith, same last name. How weird. Apparently not related. Saved Joseph Smith's leg and married his neighbor, but they didn't know each other, weren't that close. Okay, right. You mean the neighbor, Sally Chase, that actually you got your magic stone from, and she had a peep stone too, and you guys were out killing sheep one night before you talked to the angel? She wanted to kill a person, but he said no, an animal will do. So wait, what?
Damn.
Yeah. And so what did Dr. Nathan Smith get ran out of town for and stopped teaching? Because he actually was the first he invented the medical part of the school there. Okay. He got ran out of town for grave digging and digging up corpses. So he ran his ass straight to
Greaser.
guess where? Yale, to open up another medical school. Dr. Nathan Smith is very important and he's not related. Okay. Okay. So if you have somebody teaching you the same theology, back to Solomon Spalding, Dr. Johnny Smith, they say Johnny, was teaching Solomon Spalding. He also taught the Max son. Yeah, the Max that nobody ever talks about. Oh, he taught him too. And he also taught Joseph Smith inadvertently through his brother Hiram, who was 1 year away from graduating when what happened? They ran his ass out of town for digging up people. So what are they doing with the people when we know about Skull and Bones? I don't know, but I do know this. I know that they dug up his dead brother that was the firstborn, and then they ran it in the newspaper 6 times, and you can look at it. It's everywhere. It's in the Palmyra.
They ran what in the newspaper? That he was dug up and
they were digging him up. They were going to dig him up. So this is basically what it says in a nutshell. We're going to dig him up because you guys keep gossiping about us digging him up, and we didn't dig him up, so we're going to show you. Okay, that was weird. And they ran it like at least 3 times. And they dug him up and they slept by his grave at first as well. So that got weird quick. So
Yeah.
did Joseph Smith's brother have a hand in starting Mormonism? A lot of people joke that he did because that was exactly who that Moroni angel who was once alive on this earth. He was not an angel. We do not become angels after we die. We become like the angels, but we are not angels. So that is not an angel. That is something else. I would say that's an interdimensional. Okay. That is something that he pierced the veil and summoned because I can prove it because of the parchments. He's summoning with these. It doesn't say, a lot of people will say, well, those were for protecting him. True, true. Read the rest of that. It says it protects those who invoke the spirits and cause them to come.
Mm.
That wasn't normal. That isn't an angel just showing up to you, right? He's forcing the hand. And anytime we get to that, we know through Steiner's work and through Crowley's work and through all these people's work, they don't like us, first of all, especially John D will tell you they hate us. They say we stink. They make us swap wives. They make us do all this weird stuff. Like, obviously, they are not in your best interest because they're probably a lower level. You know, when we talk about these things, you're not going to summon like the archangel Michael. You're not that damn powerful. You're going to summon something that says he is, you know. And so I don't believe he was an angel, and I do believe he summoned it, and I believe he was taught that just like someone else, Solomon Spaulding. And I think Solomon Spaulding wrote a book about it just like Joseph Smith did, because who else summoned things and then wrote a book? Well, AWAS in the Book of the Law for Crowley, Scientology, and L. Ron Hubbard out in the desert doing the Babylon workings with Jack Parsons. Muhammad had a fit of darkness and an angel came to him too. And then he wrote it all. Well, he didn't write it because they're non-written, only spoken language type people. And they memorized it. And after he died sometime, it got translated down. So that's how that one happened. Jehovah's Witnesses, same thing. So you guys tell me what's going on there. That's a lot of books from people that are just popping up or what? This is magic. And we have to understand that this has been going on since the creation of time. This is fallen angel Nephilim shit. That's what it is. And they're not in your best interest. I don't think they've ever been in our best interest, to be quite frank. So, yeah, I think all religion is corrupt. I believe in Christianity as far as the path. I believe in Christ, but I do not believe in a religion. I do not pay anything to any man except people I want to help individually. I do not support anything because I believe it gets corrupt easily, not because of the people, but because of, attacks and all these different things that I definitely believe in. And I absolutely believed that day, Joseph Smith, after like 6 years of trying, people forget about this, 6 years of communing with spirits, finally got what he wanted. And he wrote a book about it. And when you look at the language it's in, it's really close to Enochian or Micmac, which is super
Right.
strange.
That's what you were mentioning, Enochian magic before, right?
And what do the Micmac have? They have the copper scrolls. So this is not new. This has never been new. I don't always know, like, if it came without summoning, maybe then it's not the same thing, right? If you're not forcing a hand and an angel just comes to you, like, you can't help that, right? But like if you're summoning, that's a different day.
Big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on it. And someday I'll write a book. But a lot of people just say, oh, it's just masonry and it's this and it's that. Well, that too, for sure. It absolutely is. It's 100% involved in it. And when we look at all of these things and the connections of the brotherhoods, and that's what they are, what did we used to call, what do the polygamists call to this day one another? Breuer and Sawyer. And that is a very magical term for brother and sister. And yeah, so if you are in the church, like I would be sister love and you would be brother, your last name, and that's how they go now in the mainstream. But in the old school, they still keep it old school, like the Rosicrucians with the Breuer and the Sawyer. And then you step back and go, okay, this is why it goes all the way back to Canaan. This is why they're masters of language. Why do you think that the Mormon missionaries can go out there and just learn a language so damn fast? I mean, yeah, It's interesting, isn't it? You know why? Because they bestow blessings upon them by laying on of hands. That's why. And I know that because I've been there. So, yeah, we have to look at it all. We do. And it matters. And magic matters. And people that want to just say he was high on mushrooms, do I think mushrooms had something to do with it? Sure. Yes. Alchemy, alchemists, 100%. Yes. What do magicians work with? I mean, they're not just out there throwing around a twig.
Yeah, and sand, throwing sand in the air, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And also he had a staff and he had a bum leg. It was a cane, but we don't always look at that. And so did almost every prophet after him had a cane. Okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes a wand is not a wand. Sometimes it's a staff. And sometimes that's a cane. And people should look at it because his was a serpent cane, just like Moses. And it's all carved like a snake. You can put in Joseph Smith's serpent cane, it'll come right up. And then after Joseph and his brother died, they dug them up because they love to dig people up. And they made canes, speaking of canes, and a secret society called the Cult of the Black Sticks because they were black. Why? Because they used the oak, which is very important if you read the Golden Bough. They used the oak coffins that they were buried in and decomposed in and had their grody blood and crap all over to make canes. And the canes turned black because they were disgusting and full of disgusting human body fluids that turned black. And they gave them to all of the new prophets, including Brigham Young. And then they stuck a mixture of both brothers' hair in the knob on the top. And if you think I'm lying, check it out. Go look online or go watch episode 172. That's on Spotify. I don't have to lie. This shit's weird.
You're not lying, no, for sure.
And nobody tells you any of this when you're a Mormon, by the way. So they are the nicest people
Right.
ever in the middle. The porch Mormons and the porch Masons, they have to be there to hide the real stuff that's going on. Unfortunately, some people are just there for dinner. Yeah.
Before we start wrapping up, can you maybe just touch upon a little bit? Are you familiar with like the Mormon document scandals, the Salamander letter, Mark Hoffman? I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are.
Mark Hoffman was a patsy, in my opinion, and this is only my opinion. This is what I can tell you. Mark Hoffman knew how to intricately forge things, and he was very good at it to the point where he would actually alchemically change the ink. This is true, into an older ink by setting it on fire and combining different things. And he was an alchemist, in my opinion. And he would write these different things, okay, and he would truthfully try to sell them to not only the church but the government. And I think it was a little bit of a huckster, but here's the thing. We have something in the Mormon church called the bleeding of the beast. And the beast is the great government of America, especially because they wanted to rule things and they still do. In fact, in Washington, D.C., the temple there has its own presidential replica of the Oval Office. And so that they can rule one day in the White Horse prophecy. So that's not a joke. And they really say the Constitution will fall and they will be there to pick up the pieces. And I mean, the Constitution is definitely falling, but I hope the Mormons don't pick up the pieces. We're all screwed if that does happen. But here we are. Okay. We've got Mark Hoffman doing these things, but the church buys it through a bishop. And this letter that supposedly was in a book that he found in England on his mission, you will never find anybody. Well, okay, I won't say never. You will usually find the people that go on missions to other countries, such as England, especially Switzerland, and other places like that, right? They're kind of in the club. And if you look backward, Hoffman is a really important name in like the history of the church. So actually, the real story is that Joseph Smith, and I quote, one time went to go talk to the angel to get the plates on his quarter moon ceremony. It happened once a year for years and years. It didn't just happen overnight. And something like a toad came up and punched him in the face because it turned into a man. And that's a real story. But that story is a problem for the church. Why is that story a problem for the church? Well, everybody knows that toads are what? they're really associated with witchcraft and like witches familiars and different things like this. And there's also stories about Baal appearing as a frog. And so, it's a problem. Okay. And it's written and it's real. So they're like, I can't prove that they thought this, but I'm thinking in my mind that they were like, how could we change this narrative? Right. Let's have Hoffman sell us this thing because we know he can do this, right? And I think they were making money right along with him because bishops, not the church, was buying this, just regular people for the church and then donating it.
Right.
So multiple times. So yeah, they've got a network is what I'm saying. And so I think they put Mark up to it as a patsy to change the narrative because you have to understand what the salamander A represents for alchemy, B represents for the Templars, C represents not being forged by the fire, D represents not a witch's familiar. Okay. Salamanders are really important with alchemy and Templars. You need to, like, people have to look that up to understand why this is so important, because now if you go ask any Mormon or anybody else, hey, do you know about that story with Joseph Smith and a toad? First of all, they're going to correct you and they're going to say that was a salamander and it was fake. Well, then why did the church plaster it everywhere before they vetted it? Because that doesn't seem very 3-letter agency to me. And they were wrapped up in those 3-letter agencies at that time. Okay. They didn't kill him. He knew how to make the bombs to kill everybody else, but not himself, apparently. And so his pressure cooker bomb didn't have the same containers and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So he lived. He's still alive to this day. He's up at the prison. Yeah. But something happened to him. He used to speak out all the time. He used to run his little mouth when he first got arrested and say some things. And then one night he tried to unalive himself. And he laid in maximum security where they have to check on them every 15 minutes. Okay. It's like clockwork, like we have to do in the psych hospital. They have to, because if you're in maximum security, like on death watch, suicide watch, you have to do this for them. Okay. He was already on that. He was already just like somebody else we know. Anyway, no cameras. Yeah, no. He laid on his arm and it was his writing arm. And he laid on that arm for over 12 hours until so much neurological damage was done. He'll never forge again. Don't worry about it. And then he never said not ever another word. They shut him right up. So I don't know the real story there, but that is real. I mean, that part happened. The other part happened. My conjecture pieces, I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure he stood up when he got arrested and said, I'm just the patsy. I'm just a patsy. I feel bad for the guy. I don't know. I don't know the truth, but it's very strange. They definitely changed everything. And this person's talking about NASA. Don Lind of NASA, one of the top NASA people, was a Mormon, along with many others, including Skunk Works. What's his name that not invented, but made Skunk Works? Ben Rich. He's a Mormon. He worked with Howard Hughes, who loved Mormons, and they all worked together with the Mormon Mafia. That's in my one about RFK, if anybody wants to see Mormon Mafia and RFK Sirhan. So, yeah. Who was what? A Rosicrucian. He had his card. Supposedly knew Manly P. Hall, who was best friends with the governor at the time of that. So, yeah. A Mormon shot RFK, and RFK Jr. says that himself. Thane Eugene Caesar worked for the Mormon Church. Thane Eugene Caesar was behind RFK, and RFK got shot at close range where it tattooed his body per his autopsy report in the back of the head. Sirhan was never behind him, ever. No. Yeah. He was MK Ultra. He was a patsy. And he did shoot some people, but they just didn't die, And he unloaded his gun, and still there were more bullets. So
yeah.
Yeah, Yamaguchi, Thomas Noguchi, he got fired over that because he took the autopsy to the president and demanded that it be looked at, and he got fired. So he was also, Sirhan was knee deep in black magic, and he had a mentor, which I present on that RFK one and show his autopsy. Rathke, who is extremely hard to find, Thomas Rathke, who appears to me on all matches, was a Mormon from Utah. You can't make it up. So, yeah, Nixon's in this, Watergate's in this, Senator Bob Bennett's in this. He's passed now. It's you can't make it up. So, the Mullen Company and the whole affair with, water. Well, that was owned by a Mormon. So, Mullen Company that only had like maybe 4 people underneath their ad company: Howard Hughes, the Osmonds, the LDS Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and the LDS Church. Yeah. I'm like, oh, Bobby Bennett. Yes. And Sirhan is alive, and it is extremely sad because he should not be in prison.
Yeah. That's kind of a sad one because, well, very sad one. I mean, they just warped the guy's mind and put him through that and
hypnotized him and
let the guy out. Yeah.
Weird stuff. Weird stuff.
Right? So, I mean, oof, that's awful.
Right. Right. And I dare say, like I said, I do want to clarify, this is not the normal Mormons that live next to you, most likely, unless you might live in Silicon Valley or somewhere weird, maybe, or Utah, possibly, right? You always hear like this person or that person was in the CIA after they die, and you're like, oh my gosh, they were just a teacher. That's a big one. Like, you ever watch Real Housewives of Salt Lake City? The chick on there, Heather Gay. You ever see her?
No, I would never watch something like that, but I know.
Yeah.
What you're talking
She's
about.
famousy. She wrote like a book, Bad Mormon, and her dad. Yeah. Her dad worked, he was in the CIA, the FBI at Quantico. And he won some really big awards for being like the Indiana Jones of the FBI in Utah. And now, yeah, and she married, remember the Gays. Remember I told you that last name? Well, that guy worked for Howard Hughes. And then after Howard Hughes died, he took over Howard Hughes Medical Institute and became extremely important. They are Mormon royalty. So this is way bigger than anybody can imagine. And they merge and go in with the Romneys later. They become, in together, the Gays and Huntsmans merge. It gets really interesting.
I'd like to next time when we speak, I'd like to.
We can do financials.
I'd like to hear more on the Romneys and stuff too. I mean, there's so much more I'd like to
wild
ask you about next time. So I really hope you'll come back. I had a wonderful time, Heidi. I did too. Time. Thank you so much for coming. Before we go though, can you just let everyone know where to find you for those who are not aware?
Yes, of course. So I'm Heidi Love. I'm of the Unfiltered Rise podcast. I do have my own website, unfilteredrisepodcast.com, but most of my shows are going to be on Spotify. So if you'll follow me there or give me a review there, that will really help me, especially on Apple. That helps the algorithm because I get plenty of hate, as you probably saw in the comments. I get smashed down a little bit. So if you can help me out by following me on Spotify, I have over 200 shows on there. A lot of stuff that I'm talking about. I do have a Patreon where we dive deep into medical things and even medical magic, medical like psych units of the old days and all kinds of weird stuff. So old alchemy. Yeah, we do. Me and Deplorable Janet do a show together as well on that. So, and then I do monthly Mormon Mondays with Paranoid American. So that's coming up next week.
Shout out Thomas. Right on. Right on, guys. Well, make sure to check Heidi out. And please also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Divulgence Podcast. You can get us on YouTube, Rumble, and, of course, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But, yeah, tune in. This was an awesome time. I enjoyed myself. So thanks again, Heidi. And thanks to everyone in the audience, all the listeners, viewers, and we'll definitely have more next time. Lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about. Yes. Thank you so much.